Thank you for joining us. We're sorry we can't see you in person, so this is the closest we can get. But we're actually wanting to get your feedback. We want to hear your concerns, but we also want to give you the facts and information of exactly what you will be getting. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of talk out there, a lot of rumours, but we're going to get the facts to you. But also at the same time, we want to make sure that we try and get you the best possible outcome. This EBA has been difficult. It's been one of the most difficult EBAs to negotiate. David and Cameron have worked extremely hard. David is our Assistant Secretary and Cameron Granger, our Industrial Officer. As you probably may be aware, the policy guidelines is 2% last year in relation to wages increases across all union sectors. This year, it's actually dropped down to 1.5%. There's been a lot of policies put around the government to try and limit us in getting you what we believe is not enough money. We believe you're hard workers, you do extremely hard work, you put yourselves under risk, and you deserve a lot more. However, you don't want to hear about what I think. I think it's more important we hear what you think. So what I'm going to do is ask David Eden to give you a quick presentation on what exactly will be happening, but at the same time, I really want to hear your concerns. So please feel free to ask any clarifications. As David said, there's obviously a chat there where you can actually type in your questions, and at the end of the session we'll take as much questions as possible. This won't be the first and last time that we will talk to you. There will be a lot more communications coming out your way as well. So over to you, David. Thanks everybody. See you soon.
Thank you very much for that, Diana. So what I'll do, I'm putting two parts of the presentation together. So there's a general part of the presentation, and there's one specifically for you, the dental assistants. So what I'll do is run through the general presentation first. So if we go straight to the second page, thank you very much. Quite often, union officials fall into the trap of talking, enterprise bargaining agreements and the Fair Work system, and what happens is our members' eyes glaze over, and it's like we're talking a foreign language. So what I thought I'd do is just give you a really basic idea of what enterprise bargaining is. So what we do as union officials is we go out and we engage with our membership, we run surveys, our organisers are out on the ground asking you exactly what you'd like in your enterprise bargaining agreement. And from there, we put together a wish list, a shopping list. And what people don't always know is that the employers do a similar process. So ultimately the government's the employer. They will go through the employers and their employers' representatives, and they'll put a wish list together as well about what they would like to see in the enterprise bargaining agreement. We come together, we throw our wish list on the table, they throw their wish list on the table, and negotiations begin. Now, the employers are always trying to negotiate wages and conditions down, and we as a union are always trying to improve wages and conditions. And that's why I got a picture of a cake there. You won't be scratching your head wondering why I got a picture of a cake. That's because it's a great analogy where every enterprise bargaining agreement is based on a modern award, and the modern award is the underlying cake. You can't have any less than the cake. An enterprise bargaining agreement is the icing and the lollies and everything else you see on top, including the candles. The employers are always trying to get you back to the cake. We're always trying to embellish it with all the icing and the lollies and all the rest of it. So another way of putting it too is it's like selling a car privately. You'll advertise it. What you'll do is you'll be a bit shrewd. You'll whack another $500 on top, thinking that someone will come along, they'll negotiate you down, they'll drive away with a car that they paid $500 less than the advertising price. So they're pretty chuffed. They're happy that they've got themselves a bargain, and ultimately you've got what you really wanted to sell your vehicle for. So enterprise bargaining is no different to that. We always, we want the world when it comes to bargaining, and what ends up in reality happening is we end up falling somewhere in the middle between what the employers want and what we want through bargaining. Go to the next slide. So Diana mentioned government wages policy. It is a pretty tough ordeal making your way through the government wages policy. It is a 2%. Well, when we negotiated this agreement, it was set at 2% per year, and that was it. It was maxed out, and that incorporates not just your wages, but also other conditions improvements and also allowances and things like that. So it's a 2% wages cap. The only way you can get around the 2% wages cap is that you do what was known as a 12-month rollover deal. So you don't do any negotiations with the employers whatsoever. You just say, we'll just take the 2.5% and we'll see you in 12 months. The health professionals did that. They took the 2.5% rollover, and now that they're coming back to the negotiating table, they fall firmly inside the government's new wages policy of 1.5%. So if I was a health professional, I'd be pretty upset right now. They've been duped. The government's lured them in with a 2.5% rollover, only to bite them at the end of the day with a 1.5% new wages policy. But there is opportunity to get additional uplifts through negotiations, that being the third pillar. And we've been more successful with some classifications than others when we come to dealing with the third pillar. And I'll explain now what the third pillar is. Next slide, thanks, mate. So the third pillar is where we can demonstrate, where we can support other government initiatives. And the TAFE system is a really good example of where the state government has invested very, very heavily into the TAFE system. The TAFE system isn't doing as well as they'd like, but most of our classifications either have no formal qualifications, so they might have a Cert 3 or a Cert 4 or a diploma in what they do. And there's career path opportunities there for our members to go on if they were to complete these courses through TAFE. And we've got workplace trainer careers advisors now in every hospital in Victoria to help people advance their careers in the health industry. So we're able to get additional wages uplifts where we could demonstrate career path opportunities for particular classifications. Another area is where there has been a classification that has not been overhauled or looked at or hasn't really done well out of enterprise bargaining in previous rounds. And food services is a really good example of that, where food services haven't really had their chef and cook structure reviewed since the mid-80s, and they were able to access additional funding through Pillar 3 to address that with a new career path and classification structure. But the other area too is where we've identified there's a minority group that's potentially been disadvantaged. And as we know, we work in the health industry, it's overwhelmingly female. And we know that women typically retire with less than men in their superannuation as well. And we're able to argue some wage equity inequality there between the men and women working in the same industry. So Pillar 3 did get a bit of a working over from us, depending on which classification you're in. Some did better than others. So next slide. What did you all get? Well, as dental assistants, I'd guess that you're working Monday to Friday at the moment, getting 4 weeks annual leave a year. You're going to have a new base of 5 weeks annual leave a year. So not 4 weeks, but 5 weeks. However, if you are a shift worker, if you do some weekends, you're going to get an additional week's annual leave as well. So you'll go to 6 weeks annual leave. So a base of 5 weeks annual leave for all non-shift workers. And if you work shift work, you'll get the additional week taking you to 6 weeks annual leave. Now, this particular extra week's annual leave was very costly to introduce for the employers. So there was one of those negotiations or those trade-offs. And what we've done is aligned a clause with what the nurses have had for a very, very long time and what the medical scientists negotiated 4 years ago in their agreement, is that at the moment, if you work a public holiday, and I don't think you guys would ever work a public holiday, but you'd receive double time and a half. Under the new arrangement, you'd only receive double time. If you're a full-time employee and you're rostered off on a public holiday, you get 1.5 times your usual pay. Under the new agreement, you'll get single time. A rostered day off for part-time employees. So what happens is that the employer will look over the previous 6 months of your employment and see if you would ordinarily work the Tuesday that the public holiday fell on. If you don't ordinarily work that day of the week, you don't get paid anything. If you do ordinarily work the day of the week and you happen to be rostered off, you get paid time and a half. The new agreement is whatever your average hours are, regardless of whether you ever work that day of the week or not, you'll get paid your average hours for that day at single time. What tends to happen in the dental health services is that the employers provide you with an additional day off. So your roster days off are typically the Saturday, Sunday. If there's a public holiday on the Monday, the employer will say, look, it's going to be pretty quiet on the Monday. We're not going to do any business. We're closed on Monday. Don't bother coming in. And what you do is you get paid your usual rate of pay, and that's what's going to happen also in the future, where if you are provided with an additional day off by the employer, so one that you'd normally be rostered on, but they've gone, don't bother turning up, that'll continue to be paid as usual pay in the new agreement. Next slide. Long service leave access after 7 years. This has also been cut and pasted straight out of the nurses agreement. It's hot off the press. So the nurses agreement only got finalised a couple of months ago. And what's going to happen is that long service leave is going to be phased in over 3 years. So as of 1 July this year, if you've had 9 years service in the health industry, you can access long service leave pro rata based on the State Long Service Leave Act. Next year, you'll be able to access it after 8 years, and the following year, you'll be able to access it pro rata after 7 years. And as we know, we've got younger employees coming in, and I think dental assistants is one of those areas where there's a lot of young people working as dental assistants. They're quite transient in their working life. They don't stay around and hang around for the one employer for 10 years or more to get long service leave. So it's a bit of a pipe dream for them. However, this entitlement will allow people access to long service leave at a less amount of time with the employer. That might encourage people to stay longer. However, they might want to use the long service leave to go and do additional education, for example. So great opportunity for people to get access to long service leave. This dental assistance in your environment, you've always had access to your accrual for long service leave includes casual employment. If you work for Dental Health Services Victoria or Ballarat Dental Services, your casual employment was never counted towards long service leave. We've rectified that under this enterprise bargaining agreement as well. So if you've worked for either one of them and moved to where you are at the moment in a hospital across Victoria doing dental services, that service will be recognised. So just to keep that in the back of your mind. Next slide, thanks, mate. Now, we've got more and more employers being really clever and employing people for 37.5 hours a week, so they don't have to pay their employees an ADO. What we've introduced in this enterprise bargaining agreement, if you're working 37 hours or more a week, you've got the right to approach your employer and say, I want a system of work that provides me with an ADO once a month. They can't unreasonably refuse that. You're not going to get an ADO just simply working 37 or 37.5 hours a week. You've got to work your 40 hours a week to accrue your ADO. That's how it works. You accrue your ADO to take one ADO once a month. So that's a really good outcome as well. That addresses what employers have been up to for some time, systematically replacing full-time employees as they retire or leave the industry who have ADOs with part-time employees, employing them half an hour under what they need to a week just to avoid the ADO. So this will rectify that as well. Next clause, next slide. So workload's a massive issue, and it's pretty much every department in hospitals. The employers don't fully replace staff who are on leave, or people have left the organisation, and as I said before, the full-time employee leaves and they replace them with a part-time employee and expect the same amount of work to be done. It's a real issue. It's a health and safety issue. Historically, it hasn't been dealt with as a health and safety issue under our previous agreements. However, this time what's happening is that our union's been working for the last couple of years developing guidance material with WorkSafe around fatigue management. And what we've done is we've embedded it into this agreement. So under the workload management clause now, the employer has to adopt the principles outlined under the fatigue guidance for employers. And what guidance is that comes out from WorkSafe is that if an employer adopts everything that's in the guidance material, they're considered as being OH&S compliant. If they don't adopt everything that's in that guidance, they are considered not OH&S compliant. So this was a big coup for us to get this put into our enterprise bargaining agreement, and WorkSafe themselves were really rapt that we're able to embed this guidance material into our enterprise bargaining agreement. So if you have got workload issues in your workplace, you can have them addressed through the work management clause and look up the guidance material on fatigue management for the workplace. And it's a very powerful tool for you and our organisers to use in the future. If you go to the next slide, thanks, mate. If you're in regional Victoria, so if you're an OH&S representative, please let us know, because our membership database doesn't have a lot of OH&S representatives on there, and we know that there are more out there than what we have on our system. So please let us know if you're an OH&S rep. We'll update our system. Our OH&S rep members get more information around OH&S than what our general membership does. If you're in regional Victoria, we recommend Be Safe as the training provider. And if you're in Melbourne, we recommend that Victorian Trades Hall Council is your training provider. An elected health and safety representative or their deputy is entitled to 5 days basic training when they're initially elected, as well as a 1-day update every 12 months. That's an entitlement that you have. If you're not a health and safety representative and you don't have one in your department, I encourage you to have a chat to your organiser to get an election organised and get a health and safety representative elected, because there are other opportunities that are also going to become apparent if we go to the next slide. So this idea or this concept came about with my time working at St John of God Healthcare, and what happened was that I was elected as a health and safety rep within my unit, and I went off and did my 5-day basic course, embraced my learnings, come back, and I was doing lots of education to the staff, making sure they've all been trained in the equipment that we used, as well as ensuring that all the maintenance was getting done, all the scheduled maintenance, and anything that had been broken or whatever, I was able to either condemn or get replaced or send down to the engineering department and get fixed. So I was loving it. I think it was a fantastic opportunity for me. And what happened was I was approached by the health and safety manager and asked whether or not I'd like to work over with him in the health and safety department on a fortnightly basis, or on 1 day a fortnight. I said, oh, it sounds like a great idea. And when I went over there, I wasn't the only health and safety rep that had been approached by him. There was also a chef that would work over there. I think she did a couple more days than me, a fortnight, but she'd work over there with him as well. And it took me a while to twig what was going on. And that was that the health and safety manager wasn't from the health industry. He lacked the knowledge of and the intricacies of what goes on inside a hospital, and he was there picking our brain. We were there he was developing policies, health and safety policies, by having us sitting in his department and talking about the risks that are posed within our individual departments in the hospitals. But it wasn't just a one-way learning street. It wasn't just him picking our brains. We were able to learn a lot off him too as a health and safety manager. And in fact, when he eventually retired, the health and safety representative from the kitchen had gone on and done a certificate for an OH&S and replaced him as the health and safety manager. So it's about learning and relationships, and there's opportunities there under this clause to reach out to your employer and say, I'm the health and safety representative. Can I come and do a secondment arrangement up there in the health and safety department? And as a result, you can share those learnings with your health and safety manager and pick their brain as well. And I encourage you to go on and do your Cert 3 or a Cert 4 or even a diploma in OH&S, and one day be a health and safety manager in a hospital somewhere. I think it'd be a fantastic outcome for us all. If you go to the next slide, thanks, mate. So, as I mentioned before, look, I think the average age of a public hospital employee now is 53. None of us are getting any younger. Where workplace injuries aren't always just a trip or a fall, a broken bone or a lacerated leg. It could be that you've got parts that are worn out. You've been doing the same job for many, many years, and you've got repeated stress injuries and you're wearing out. As I mentioned before, we've got an ageing membership as well, and we have represented members in recent times who have had early onset Alzheimer's and are able to do their job as productively as they once were. And what's been happening is that the employers are pulling them in and saying, well, you're not able to do your work like you used to. As a bed maker, you're not doing your 30 beds a day that you once were able to do. You're now only doing 12. Now we're going to put you on a performance improvement plan because we want your performance to improve. Well, guess what? They can't improve. They're worn out. So where it's being investigated as part of the performance improvement plan that you have identified as having a disability, and that might have been an acquired disability, an injury, for example, or it might be some other disability. Where it's been identified you've got a disability, the employer is going to have to deal with it under the equal opportunity clause in the enterprise bargaining agreement, where they're going to have to work out what supports you need to continue on with your work for that particular employer. And that might mean that they might need some extra hours given to another staff member to relieve you of some of your role. It might be that there's particular duties that you can't do physically or mentally, and they've got to put in adjustments to help maintain your employment. As one thing I'm very disappointed about in the public hospital system is that they're usually the largest employers across regional Victoria, but we see very, very few people employed with disabilities, and far too often do we see people who have suffered a workplace injury thrown on the scrap heap, only for them to try and find a job somewhere else in these regional communities. If they're not good enough to work for the hospital, it's going to be pretty tough finding a job somewhere else. Next slide, thanks, mate. The careers advisor workplace trainer positions, they're in every hospital across Victoria, and we've expanded their responsibilities. So where it's been identified that you've got a workplace injury and you're not likely to return to your pre-injury job, the workplace trainer careers advisor will get involved to assist you with retraining and possible redeployment. And the retraining and redeployment might not be within that hospital, but it's going to be offered to you as part of the process. If you've been injured and you can't get back to your old job, what opportunities are there for you? And maybe not just within that hospital, but within the community that you live in. The other thing that they're going to be responsible for is where a position's been made redundant. So the employer's looking down the track and going, look, in 6 months' time, your position's going to be made redundant. They're going to have to tee up an appointment with your workplace trainer careers advisor to investigate training and possible opportunity for redeployment. And once again, it's not necessarily within the hospital or the organisation you work for. It might be external as well. And a company that did that really, really well was Holden when they closed down the Adelaide manufacturing plant. They knew well in advance that they were going to close that down, and they got workplace trainer careers advisors in. They retrained all their staff not to continue to work in manufacturing, because manufacturing was dying in Australia. Most of their staff retrained and redeployed into health across South Australia. So this is a really good, once again, opportunity for our members to get retrained and redeployed. Not even within the health industry, perhaps externally, by using the workplace trainer careers advisor. Next slide, thanks, mate. There is going to be an additional 15 EFT put into the workplace trainer careers advisors across the state of Victoria. So that's not 15 new positions. It might be that some hospitals or networks have part-time employees, so they'll be lifted up to full-time employees. And some hospitals may have been a little bit undercooked, and we've provided additional EFT in there as well. So they might go to 2 EFT or 2 full-time positions, and in particular where they're part of a larger network as well. So it might be one hospital employing the workplace trainer careers advisor, but they might actually work across a number of hospitals in regional Victoria. We see those sorts of relationships, and they're going to get extra support and time put into that. Next slide, thanks, mate. We've improved the study leave access as well. So far too often have we heard the story from our members where they've approached their employer and said, hey, look, I'm really excited. I found a course I want to do, but I'll need some study leave. And the employer goes, well, what's that got to do with your job here? And if you can't say it has anything to do with their job there, the employers are saying, no, you can't have it. Now we've opened that clause up. It doesn't have to be related to your job that you're doing for that organisation. So long as it's a health industry course that you want to do, the employer cannot say no to your study leave requests. We've also cracked open a flexible work arrangement. So if you're an employee that wants to do a course that is an evening course, for example, and you're rostered of a Wednesday evening usually, you can request that you could do a day shift on the Wednesday instead so you can attend your evening TAFE course, for example. You might have a clinical placement at the end of your training. You can use the flexible work arrangements as well to do your placements there. So there's also a education incentive allowance, which I'm going to have to double check, but I think it's going to be accessible for dental assistants grade 1. So it's only going to be for those who currently have no formal qualifications. I just need to double check whether or not dental assistants are actually on the list. So if they're not, I'll have to see if I can get them added. On to the next slide. Thanks, mate. Now, going back to what I was initially saying, that men and women might work in the same position for the same employer for the same period of time, only for the women to retire with less superannuation than men. Why? Because women are more likely to take parental leave. What we've done as part of this enterprise bargaining agreement is that regardless of whether you're on your paid 3-month parental leave or your other 9 months unpaid, you will have your super contributions put into your super fund every 4 weeks. And how it's going to be worked out is whatever you were earning over the preceding 12 months, so the 12 months before you took parental leave, they'll make super contributions based on those earnings. So all employees' superannuation contributions will now be on a 4-weekly basis. The employers have only got a legal responsibility to put it in quarterly. The longer it's in your superannuation account, at the end of the day, the more money that's going to be there for you in your retirement. So we'll address the issue where women go off on parental leave and aren't getting paid their super. They will now up to 12 months. And at retirement age, that would be absolutely fantastic outcome for those people. So that certainly pushed us well above the 2% wages policy, but it was something that needed to be addressed. Next slide, thanks, mate. We don't get a lot of disputation out of the dental assistant classifications, but in the future, if there was a dental assistant who thought they'd been incorrectly classified, we don't have to wait months for a commission hearing, because that's how long it's taking at the moment. Or you go and argue your case before a commissioner who doesn't have a health industry background, and it depends on what side of the bed they got out of that morning as to how they'll hear the case. So there's a lot of things that are up in the air when it comes to taking things off to the Fair Work Commission and arguing. And then what will happen is I'll take a few months to send back their recommendations as well. So the turnaround time on a classification dispute might be 6 to 9 months. What we've done is set up an industry review panel. So the panel will be independently chaired by most likely a retired commissioner with a health industry background. And only union members will have access to the industry review panel, and we'll present the case on our members' behalf, and the employers will also present their case to the independent chair, and the independent chair will hand down their recommendations. And I think the view is that the industry review panel is going to meet probably on a monthly basis. And it's not just our union in the health industry that's going to be using this industry review panel. It will be also the nurses and most likely the other health unions will pick this concept up and run with it as well. So let's get into the specifics for dental assistants. Oh, actually, do you want to quickly play the quick video? So to give you an idea of what the workplace trainer careers advisor's role is in the health industry, this captures pretty much their role, this video. So I'll quickly put this on. It only goes for a couple of minutes, so enjoy.
You're coming from a long road and the money's gone. All the games where you played your part from the very start just to come this far. You should know I believe in you. Every race you run, you're my number one. Kick it up now and bring it on. This will be your day. 'Cause baby, you were born to win. Never give up, never give in, you are born to win. Your destiny is victory. Yeah, baby, you were born to win. You set it up and you knock it down. You're all set now to rock this town. You don't really need to play it low. Just get up and go. This is all your show. You should know I believe in you. Every race you run, you're my number one. Kick it up now and bring it on. This will be your day. 'Cause baby, you were born to win. Never give up, never give in, you are born to win. Your destiny is victory. Baby, you were born to win.
Thank you very much for that, Jose. And now we'll go to the final presentation. We'll go to the second one. Okay, thank you very much. So under the current agreement that you're on, not the one when you just finished negotiating, but your current agreement, you guys translated from dental nurses to dental assistants. And that happened in October 2018. So dental nurse level 1, who's a trainee, went to a dental assistant trainee, and their weekly wage increase was $14.20. The dental nurse level 2 transitioned to dental assistant grade 2, which was a $383.60 a week wage rise. Dental nurse level 3 translated to dental assistant grade 2 at $66 a week wage increase. Dental nurse level 4 went to dental assistant grade 2 at $89.60. And the dental nurse level 5 went to dental assistant. So what's the difference there is that you actually get like dental assistant 2, 2.1, 2.2, 2.3. So the points are left off. But the dental nurse level 5 went to dental assistant grade 2 with $100.80 a week wage increase under your current agreement. Now, they were absolutely astounding wage increases, particularly for level 2. Level 4 and level 5, but you know, obviously the $66 at level 3 is nothing to be sneezed at either. We as a union, we work for our union members, and we had a hard time with our committee of management convincing them that we should be doing this sort of wage translation and new classification structure for dental nurses, because we've got typically a very, very low union density of dental nurses, now dental assistants in public hospitals across Victoria. We convinced our branch committee management at the time that, look, if you give them these wage outcomes, we are sure that we will be able to join more members as dental assistants across regional Victoria, in particular, because that's where you essentially all exist. And it will, it's a great investment. It's a fantastic investment. So we convinced our branch committee management at the time to provide this wage uplift for typically non-members, which is almost unheard of. But we said that this needs to be a once-off deal. If we can give them the money, they will join. Well, unfortunately, the membership didn't reflect we didn't see any increase in membership in dental assistants at all across Victoria, and so I was a little deflated when it comes to reporting back to branch committee management that, hey, look, we gave all this money to essentially a very ununionised area of our membership. So I guess what I'm pleading with you is that, look, we delivered fantastic outcomes for you guys as a group last time. I know you networked together. I know you talked to other dental assistants at other hospitals in Victoria, had that conversation with them about joining the union, because we don't work for non-members. We reward our membership with better wages outcomes. And it's in everyone's interest that we have a strong union membership across the dental assistant area. And to be quite honest, we currently don't. And if you have a look at the participants at the moment, we've got 3 dental assistants that have joined us tonight from right across Victoria. And I know we can do better, but it's about having that positive conversation with those potential members out there about why they should join that. When you can see these sorts of wages outcomes that we delivered in good faith last time. So if we go now to the next slide, what we've got is wages outcomes this time over the life of your agreement is 2% per year. So in 2021, as of 1 July, 2022 is going to go up 2%, then a further 2%, 2023, 2024 across the board. And essentially, with the improvements around the additional weeks annual leave, the ADO access, and also the superannuation contributions, it still comes out well above what the wages government wages policy is. But from a wages point of view, very hard for me to try and put it over our branch committee management again. So I'm just being perfectly honest with you. The more members we have in particular classifications, so improved density, the better off those particular groups are. So that's your wages outcome for this new agreement. I would have loved to have done better for you, but we need to improve your union membership density across dental assistants. So I'll call that an end to my presentation, and what I'll do is you've been popping in questions, which is good. I've got a couple of questions there, and I'll hand you over to Cameron to answer those questions. And then what we'll do is just open the meeting up. Then you can, if you prefer to verbally ask those questions, you can do so. So over to you, Cameron.